Where does Hideo Kojima get his ideas? In this podcast, we take a deep dive into his brain and shed light on his creative process. Hideo Kojima presents Brain Structure.
こんにちは、小島秀夫です。ポッドキャストプログラム、Hideo Kojima Presents Brain Structure.
Hello, Hideo Kojima here with the podcast program Hideo Kojima Presents Brain Structure. With me is my partner for the show.
Hi there, this is Brains. Glad to be here, Mr. Kojima. So, what's the topic for today?
今日は本のテーマですね。
Today, we're going to talk about books. I understand that I'm known as being made up of 70% movies, but in all honesty, I think I'm 70% books.
So, more books than movies, you think?
Well, it's about the same. But if you add 70 plus 70, you get 140, and that doesn't make a lot of sense. I guess I'm trying to say that books have taught me more than movies have. When I was a kid, I used to read about a book and a half a day.
Did you really?
読んでました。
I did indeed. I didn't have much money, so when I bought a book, I made sure to read it, cover to cover. When I ran out of cash, I would go to my parents' or my brother's room to get more books. I couldn't afford to buy a bunch of them at one time, so whenever I finished reading one, I take my bike and go straight to the bookstore to buy another one. And I didn't go to just some small local shop, but a store with a ton of different selections from Hayakawa Publishing to essays, etc. Every time I went, there were less and less books available. And then I realized it was because I was buying all the books.
It wasn't that other people were buying them? It was just you buying up the store's stock?
Pretty much. Anyway, I haven't been able to read too many books these days, but I do watch around 400 movies every year.
Despite the fact there's only 365 days in a year, that's impressive.
I counted the books I read this year. Well, not all of them, but most of them. And as of September, I'm at 95.
On top of 400 movies, you also read 95 books?
Yeah, most of them were novels. I bought over 160 though.
So, you still have about 70 left to read?
多分読まないですね。積み本。
Yes, but I probably won't finish them all. I get sent tons of books from publishers a week before they're released to the public. I'm able to read books that nobody has read before.
Sounds like a nice perk.
Before COVID, I would go to one or two different bookstores every day and buy a book. Nowadays, I don't go as often, maybe just on the weekends, which means I unfortunately don't have many chances to meet new books. I say meet because books have faces. The cover, the title, the design, the bindings. There are moments when you feel a spark. I'll pick it up, look at it, and if I like it, I'll head to the cashier. This is my experience with meeting new books. I don't go to the bookstore very often now, so I have less of those experiences.
What do you do now then?
On weekends, I'll either go to the bookstore or I'll gather information from a bunch of different people on social media, and if something looks good, I buy it off Amazon. But none of it compares to the pleasure of going to the bookstore in person.
I'm guessing you're not a fan of ebooks then.
あ、それ読まないです。
Definitely not. Paper books only. Sometimes 2 pages will be stuck together and I'll accidentally skip a page. And halfway through, I start to get confused like, am I missing something? Then I realize that I skipped a page and I'm like, darn it.
Yeah, that happens. So, is feeling the paper in your hands important to you?
It's not like that. I like the tempo of flipping through the physical pages. Also, when I finish reading a book, I like to keep it. When I became independent, I got rid of over 20,000 books.
20,000?
And now they're piling up again and I don't have any room in my house anymore. I started leaving them at the office, but they got angry with me, telling me not to leave my books all over the place.
Sounds like you'll be out of space soon. Now that you're not reading as many books, do you feel like the source of new ideas is running dry? Like there's not enough input?
まあ、量ではないと思うので。
It's not about the quantity. It's the same with movies as it is with games and novels, but 90% of them are complete trash.
Really?
Really.
So only about 10% are good?
Of course, humans are the ones making them, so they can't all be perfect. Humans all have the same base DNA structure. We're not gods, but there are some amazing things in that 10%, even authors of the past. So, it's all about just how many I can come across in my short life. That's why I go to the bookstore.
Do you feel like the chances of meeting that 10% is getting higher over the years?
Yeah, I think so. With movies, you can tell just by watching the teaser trailer whether it's a hit or a miss. I'm wrong sometimes though. With books, the face is super important. And I'm not talking about the 3 out of 5 stars or whatever you see online. And well, Mr. Shiozawa will be making a brief appearance today.
Yes, he has left us a message.
本屋さんって売りたい本、売れる本って
Bookstores have products that they want to sell and products that they will actually sell. They sell hundreds of thousands of copies. And when you look at them, you can tell there are obvious intentions to sell certain books. That may be obvious from looking at the binding or the logo, the title, the cover too. When I see that, it really makes me realize how much effort the bookstore put into that, and that's one of the biggest factors in finding hits.
If you take those factors into account, does that mean the books they want to sell are the hits?
Whether the books they want to sell are a match for me or not personally is a separate subject. The people in the editorial department are professionals, so whatever they push, I feel like I have to read. And there are a bunch of marketing strategies, but one of them is the cover with commentary and reviews. For me personally, I can think of 3 people who, if I saw them raving about the book on the cover, I would most definitely buy the book. The first person is Stephen King. King has never let me down. The books he writes may or may not be interesting.
His books may not be, but the books he recommends are?
I'm just joking. But yeah, he's almost never wrong. I buy everything he says is good.
He must be excellent as a reader and, in a sense, as a critic too.
嗅覚がすごい。
That's right, his senses and intuition are amazing. He's never wrong and never lies. In Japan, there's Jiro Kitagami and Fuyuki Ikegami. These 2 are professional literary critics and not novelists, but they're also never wrong. Back in the day, Tadao Takashima was one of those critics who was always right. There's also Jeffrey Deaver, Dennis Lane, and Lee Child. All of their works are masterpieces. Authors who also love books have a refined sense of what's good and what's not, so I don't think you can go wrong with buying their recommendations. You first pick up a book because you either like the title, the illustration, the world view, etc. Getting people to pick up the book is the most important. The cover is important as well. You pick it up, check out the back, see the reviews on there, and read the commentary. But most paperback books in Japan don't have that, so it's really hard to tell. Then you read the summary. Oh, and the reviews with the spoilers in them will say so, so I skip those. Then I deliberate and see if I like it or not. If I do, I take it to the checkout counter. This is the first hurdle. Then I put it on the shelf in my room, and from there, it competes with all the other books I have.
You don't just choose from the top?
違いました。まあ
Nope. I have the one I'm reading now and the one I want to read next. But during that time, a new book will come out and I think, okay, I'll read this one next. Or no, wait, this one. And this repeats over and over again. I don't read the ones that end up at the bottom of the stack, so every week I turn them over and change the order. It's always just like what I feel like reading in that moment. We only have 24 hours in a day. There are a lot of commentary and cover requests as well.
You wrote those as well?
Oh yeah, I have for years. Commentary is quite a lot of work. It goes on the back behind the author, and for example, if it's for a series, and I have to write a review for the 4th book, I reread from the first one.
Even though you have already read them?
I have to if I want to write anything good. They also get mad if you get even one word wrong in a quote. It's not easy, that's for sure. Which is why I haven't written much recently. The last one I wrote was before COVID for Kotaro Isaka's White Rabbit. It was about 10 to 20 lines. Like I mentioned earlier, I receive books that haven't been published yet. But recently, whenever I tweet about the books I bought personally, the publishers will ask if they can use those comments for their covers.
I see. They want to take an excerpt from the 140 characters you wrote and use it on their cover?
で、それなら全然楽なんで。
Yeah, and it's easier that way. So that's what I've been doing lately. Same with manga. I'll get a request from Hayakawa or other publishers because the first cover didn't sell so well or something. So then I'll write a new copy and then the book will sell 10, 20,000 copies. And then after that, the covers change again.
Really?
It always happens. They'll choose a more famous actor or celebrity to write it the next time.
Does your name remain on the cover?
別です。別帯。
No, they use an entirely different one. There's also a phase 3. When the book sells even more copies, they'll use like a really famous scholar or something that everybody knows. And if the book wins any awards, they'll change the cover to show that it won. So that's why most book covers are constantly changing. I helped with the 3-body problem, and last year I did the cover for Doshi Shoujo Teki wo Ute, but now there's not a trace of me on there.
Even though you contributed to the sales in the beginning?
Yeah, I think Doshi Shoujo Teki wo Ute is on its 4th cover now.
You mean there have been 4 covers in all?
だから誰よりも先にっていうのが僕好きなの。
Yeah, so I appeared on it before anyone else, and I like that.
I see. Well, you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but you've been doing Hideo's Mysteries since last year, right?
Yes, I have.
Hideo Kojima's Mystery Golden Dozen is a list of the top 12 most interesting mystery books that Mr. Kojima read that year, complete with passionate comments from him along with ads that hit stores all over Japan. Here's last year's lineup. A few of these are only in Japanese. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, The October List, Moonflower Murders, 8 Detectives, The Mist, The Thursday Murder Club, The Huntress, The 12 Lives of Samuel Hawley, Garasu no Tou no Satsujin, The Murder at the Glass Tower, 6人の嘘つきな大学生, 6 College Student Liars, 飛龍警察白骨街道, 飛龍 Police Squad, Skeleton Road, 同志少女よ敵を撃て Fellow Girl, Shoot the Enemy.
はい、このミスってわかりますね。
You know about the book fair, This Mystery, from This Mystery is Amazing, in Japan, yeah?
Yes.
It was started in 1988 by Takarajima Inc., and it was quite famous. While there are a bunch of different types of prizes for books out there like the Booksellers Award, if one got the Akutagawa Prize or the Naoki Prize, the book was basically destined to sell well. Nowadays, that isn't the case.
It doesn't really factor into sales as much anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't sell. This Mystery and the Booksellers Award winners usually sell well. Back in the day, if you received the other more prestigious awards, you were sure to sell, but now, not so much. This Mystery and Booksellers Award now play a bigger role in sales. New books are stacked flat on the shelves, but stores can only physically fit so many books at one time, so it's always changing to something new. These book fairs and awards create an opportunity for the bookstore to redisplay some featured books. There are a lot of similar book fairs out there, so it's probably confusing for everyone, but they are the reason you're able to see those books again.
If not, they'll just sit in the warehouse collecting dust.
平置きってわかる。コーナー展開というのはできない。
They stack the books flat on the shelves since they're not able to set up a display corner. That's why they do these kind of fairs. This Mystery is Amazing, aka This Mystery, is probably the biggest one, and Hideo's Mysteries is a parody of that. I started it as a joke on Twitter, but then Mr. Shiozawa from Hayakawa Publishing contacted me and said we should actually make Hideo's Mysteries a thing. I was like, really? And that's how it all came about last year. It was nationwide, and the book fair included a variety of publishing companies.
I see. So even though Hayakawa was the first one to reach out, the list includes other publishing companies too.
そうなんですよ。結構すごいこと。
That's right. It was incredible. We did it last year, so I was wondering if we were going to do it again this year. That's when I was offered to do this mystery, but when I asked Mr. Shiozawa about it, he said, let's do Hideo's mysteries again. So here we are.
Let's listen to a message from Mr. Yoshihiro Shiozawa of Hayakawa Publishing.
なぜ小島さんに推薦なりこういう企画をお願いするかっていうところなんですけど
We had a few reasons why we chose Mr. Kojima for this idea. Of course, one of them was his presence and influence on Twitter with his large following, but mostly because of the way he reads books. The way creators read books is different. He's able to pinpoint what the author is thinking, what his aim is, and in what way he's writing, and then explain it to an audience. What separates him from other creators, though, is that he produces games in such a precise way and personally goes through every small detail. He also has a remarkable sense for marketing. He really understands things from a reader's perspective and doesn't just rely on his own conclusions. Whenever we ask for a comment on a book cover, he always hits the mark. He also has many exchanges with international creators, so he's able to align with international authors when reading their translated works, whether that be science fiction or mystery novels. This provides our readers with a sense of trust regarding anything Mr. Kojima puts his stamp of approval on. The "if Hideo Kojima says it's good, then it's good" sort of confidence is something he's very capable of instilling upon the reader.
That was Mr. Shiozawa's message about Mr. Kojima. Something I took away from this is that through your own work in the gaming industry, where you oversee everything and share it with the world, you understand what catchphrase or perhaps what theme is best. So I think whenever you introduce a book, you can recognize all the small details.
映画のコメントも同じなんですけど、
It's the same with movie reviews, but if the people who read it aren't persuaded to watch the movie, then there's no point. The worst is when you just use a celebrity's name and say, for example, rave reviews from Stephen King. There's no content in that, only that he really likes it. That's why I choose my words carefully and make sure I don't use difficult words, so people who don't often read books can understand too. I pay attention to using super simple words and making sure the rhythm and flow of the sentences are good. It's got to be something that will make the reader want to read the book or see it in the case of movies. I also want to give them some insight into the work itself. Because you can't understand anything from just the words interesting or amazing, sensational or incredibly whatever.
That would be elementary school level.
大体世界観とか
I structure it around the worldview, the story, and the summary that's easy to understand. But I also make it so that when they're done reading the book, they get the real meaning behind my words.
There's a lot of thought behind it, I see.
I do the same with movies. I write in a way so that when someone sees the review, they become interested and go watch it. Then, when they go back and read my reviews again, they realize, he said it all along. Now that I think about it from today's talk, maybe this is coming from a producer's perspective. Also, this is something I wanted to mention really quickly. I get requests every day to write comments or reviews, but I choose which ones I want to do. I don't just pick at random. I think the most common type of requests I get are from the authors themselves.
That's a bit unexpected.
断りにくいやつもあるんですけど、やっぱり
Sometimes it's hard to decline. But I'm not a novelist, so I can say no sometimes. I don't do reviews just because it really resonated with me or because I personally love it. If I don't think that the average person will find it interesting, I don't write recommendations for it. In this world, there are things that I think are good and everyone else thinks it's good, and it does really well in sales. But there are also things I think are good but doesn't sell well, and also things that I don't think are good but sell really well. So I think there are about 4 different categories here, and I stick to recommending ones that I think are good and that I think other people should also read or watch.
While we are on the topic, Could you introduce us to the book you found most interesting this year?
そうですね、エルベ・ル・テリエさん。
There's a French author named Hervé Leterrier. He's a literature guy, so he doesn't write entertainment books, but I think a lot of people can read his works. I read one of his work this past February called The Anomaly, and this was by far number one. Even though I don't rank the titles in my Hideo's Mysteries list, this is still probably my personal number one as of end of September. This is the same as Nope, but I can't say anything about it. Spoilers aren't any fun.
All right, let me try to introduce the book without any spoilers. The Anomaly is a novel by French author Hervé Letellier. An assassin, a pop star, a struggling author, a soldier's wife, and a man battling cancer all come together on a plane with their destinies tied together. The jet flies into a wild storm and after some turbulence, emerges shrouded in mystery. It received the Prix Goncourt in French literature and was on the top of America's bestsellers list for mystery. It sold over 1,100,000 copies in France since its release in 2020.
これはですね、先ほど
You mentioned this a bit in your introduction, but it starts with part one, and in part one, there are a bunch of people who show up like the assassin and whatnot. It's quite an ensemble on this one plane, and well, you might have to power through the first part. But then things get pretty crazy in part two. It'll give you goosebumps and make your stomach churn like, what the heck am I reading? The secrets behind the story, the anomaly, is revealed in part two.
I haven't read that far yet, so I still don't understand what the anomaly is.
You'll be surprised, I'm sure. I've written a review for the book's cover, and right now it's Hayakawa's red cover. It says you're not allowed to do research on it. If you go to the bookstore now, you'll see the red cover version. So read it as is.
You're saying don't take off the cover?
はい、ほんで本屋で、
You can get the bookstore to put like a cover for you, but this is just like the wrapping of it. So if you take off the cover, you'll see the original one. Astute individuals may catch on if they see the cover, so you can't look at it. When you finish the book, you can take a look. Before reading it, it won't make sense, but when you finish it, it will all come together.
It's that type of cover?
The cover itself is a spoiler. They have pretty good taste, don't you think?
I agree. It's intriguing and makes you wonder why.
This is the art of literature. In literature, there's typically no storyline and most works are just talking about daily life, but this is different. And depending on how it's taken, it could be seen as a mystery or even science fiction.
It's science fiction too?
2章で SF になるんです。
It becomes sci-fi in part two. It's like Kobo Abe's work, which I love. You're like, what the heck, the whole time. This is just an exceptional novel. From part two, it just gets so exciting. I'm impressed he can come up with these ideas. The end theme is a bit dark though. It truly is a work of literary art. The author is incredibly smart. Just don't overthink it and get through part one. I can certainly say that The Anomaly will be on this year's Hideo's Mystery list. I won't reveal the others just yet.
だいたい去年もですね、
Every year, Jeffrey Deaver makes the list. That's because they're always interesting. And the author, Holly Jackson of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, has a new book out this year called Good Girl, Bad Blood. That one's good too. And last year's Anthony Horowitz, author of Moonflower Murders, is also always on the list, towards the top. His new book is really good too. Also, M.W. Craven, who wrote The Curator. These authors are obvious choices. And there's one more that you will definitely not see in the mystery list.
Okay, got it.
SF がありまして、1個目は
There's a science fiction work called Project Hail Mary. Have you read it?
No, I haven't.
I did the comments for the first book cover for this one. The second one was done by a celebrity. It's on its third cover now since it won the Seun Award.
That was for the latest work of Andy Weir, creator of The Martian, right? The one made into a movie.
Yeah, the one before the original was really good. But this one is great too, so we're not allowed to give any spoilers.
Understood.
これは僕の帯がちょっと
I think my comment on the cover gave something away. No, I think there was a cover before mine.
The cover before yours?
Sorry, yeah, mine was the second one. The first one had a spoiler, and that's why mine was used.
The spoiler-free Kojima version.
これ、ライアン・ゴスリングで映画化
Ryan Gosling will appear in the movie version of this. It's really a good sci-fi.
Here's a brief summary. There is a problem with the sun, and Earth has suddenly entered the Ice Age. A man is sent into space to explore the phenomenon and save humanity.
Yes, when the main character wakes up, he has lost his memory. It's a typical who are you and why are you here, flashback of the past.
I see. So it goes back and forth between past and present?
Basically, he's on a ship somewhere, but the main story isn't set there. It's somewhere else, but I can't say any more. But truly, I think anybody who watches it will like it. It's science fiction after all, so I think there will inevitably be some people who would avoid it, but seeing the space-themed cover, I would buy it. No doubt about that. They're going to make it into a movie starring Ryan Gosling, but I don't think it's possible. I can't really say, but there is this one thing that appears and the look of it is like, what? In the book, since it's written in words, the reader just has to picture it in their heads. But to make it come to life on screen, I don't know how they're going to do that. But anyways, everyone should check it out. Another novel I want to recommend is The Apollo Murders.
What about the Apollo murders?
これも SF
This is a science fiction too. The author, Chris Hadfield, is an astronaut who's been to space multiple times, so you can trust he knows what he's talking about. He's able to give incredible detail in his writing. I can't get enough. I kind of have an obsession with space. He knows every detail, like what car an astronaut would drive and whatnot. I think everyone knows that Apollo 18 doesn't exist. After Apollo 17, Richard Nixon said there wasn't enough funding and cut the project. This is a mystery about what would have happened if Apollo 18 existed during the Cold War.
It's set in 1973.
これもむっちゃおもろいんでこれ上下巻
Yes, it's really interesting. There's a part 1 and part 2 in paperback.
It's a murder mystery on board the Apollo?
Correct. I really want them to make it into a movie. Maybe I'll do it myself.
Please do.
もう宇宙飛行士とか言ったらもうダメや
No, if anybody's going to do it, it's gotta be Chris Hadfield. Only he can provide the right details. There are a lot of authors overseas who are like former Special Forces members, which you don't really see in Japan. Or doctors who write medical dramas, lawyers who write courtroom dramas and whatnot. It's a mystery novel about space written by an actual astronaut. This is his first work, but the quality is absolutely incredible. I'm excited for what's to come. Project Hail Mary and the Apollo Murders are science fiction, but they're also mysteries. I don't think you'll find them in this mystery list, but please do read them.
それよりもまあ異常アノマリー
Also, The Anomaly.
Please give them a read, everyone. With that, let's move on to the next segment.
Hideo Kojima presents Brain Stretcher.
ここからはゲームジャーナリストテレビ司会者ジェフ・キーリーのワンマンショー
Up next is game journalist and television presenter Jeff Keighley's one-man show, TGA, The Jeff's Answer. Take it away, Jeff.
TGA, the Jeff's Answer.
All right, this week I wanted to talk about the Steam Deck. If you're not familiar with it, this is Valve's new portable gaming system, and it's basically a handheld version of Steam, the PC gaming platform. It's a powerful little PC, and that means almost all your Steam games will work on it instantly. There's nothing you have to buy or you have to upgrade your games. Many games on Steam right now are quote-unquote deck verified, which means the developers have optimized the controls and settings for Steam. And that's probably the coolest thing about this device is that all your existing Steam games move right over. So if you bought a game a decade ago or you bought a game yesterday, There's nothing to buy or pay to upgrade. It just works. Your whole library is right there. There's some exceptions of some games that don't work great yet on Steam Deck, but generally it's pretty impressive with its compatibility. And best of all, it's a really powerful handheld system. You can play Death Stranding or Spider-Man or Elden Ring on it, and it struggles a little bit on some of the really high-end 3D games, but you can tweak the settings, and I played some games like Stray, for instance, played through the entire game this summer on Steam Deck, and it felt really next-gen to me. It feels like a portable version of a high-end PC or console experience. It's got great graphics, sound, and controls, and it also syncs to all your PC saves, so you can move between playing a game on a PC and then also on this handheld. The biggest drawback right now is the battery life. You only get probably about 2 hours of battery life on big games with lots of 3D, so that's definitely a drawback. But I know Valve's going to probably keep improving on this and iterating on the Steam Deck so it continues to improve, and I imagine we'll eventually get to a point where it has really good battery life and you're getting a PlayStation or Xbox quality experience on a handheld, which is pretty amazing. I think this is actually a big opportunity for Steam, and of course it helps defend its position as the leading kind of PC platform, but this is the only device right now where you can play Halo and Uncharted and Dota 2 because the console companies, PlayStation and Xbox, are shipping games on Steam as well. So this device is an all-in-one device. It breaks down the old barriers between console and exclusive games, which I think is really, really cool. Steam Deck, you can order it now. There was a long waiting list for a long time to get them, but now Valve has full availability. It's shipping in more countries around the world. And I think this is going to be a big thing for Valve moving forward. It's a great device, and I'm so blown away that Valve, a company that has made amazing games, has developed the skills to build such an incredible gaming handheld on its own. So I'm a big fan of it. Check it out, the Steam Deck.
It さて早くもエンディングのお時間となりました。
It looks like we're all out of time for today.
I think those who listen today are now eager to read The Anomaly, don't you think?
The average person cannot come up with something like this. You have to be a literary artist to write this. You can't create something of this sort if it wasn't a mystery or science fiction.
We also introduced Project Hail Mary and The Apollo Murders as well. And we will be featuring Hideo's Mysteries 2022 at a later time, so please check them out.
はい、ということで
And with that, we hope you look forward to the next episode of Hideo Kojima Presents Brain Structure.
それではさようなら。
Hideo Kojima Presents Brain Structure is a production by Spotify Studios in association with Kojima Productions and Fam Inc. TGA, the Jeff Sanser MC, Jeff Keighley. Brains, Kayleen Falls. Narrator, Owen Maki. Music, Silent Poets. Visual design, Mechi Kuro. Producer, Hiro Furuki. Director, Kohei Takizawa. Executive producer at Spotify, Asami Sekine. Special thanks to Kojima Productions, Ayako Terashima, Masafumi Chiba, Miki Suga, and Aki Saito. Hosted by Hideo Kojima.